So today we'll be talking on the basics of SPSS. Now, first of all, you can see this your SPSS app, this is your screen. Now we have data view and we have the variable view. Now your variable view is where you do your coding, where you code your questionnaire, while your data view is where you enter your questionnaire. So I'm going to be explaining the different columns in your variable view. Now let's start with the name column. Now your name is where you enter the questions in your questionnaire. For example, now we have a questionnaire here. We can see the questions, we can see age, sex, class, ethnic group, religion, family type. So those questions are entered in your name column. Now there are certain rules you must follow when entering data into your name column. First of all, it doesn't permit any space in between words. If you are going to use two words like a phrase, you have to join them with an underscore sign, or you just join both word sentences together because it doesn't permit any space. So for example, I'm going to type and once I type a sentence there, my SPSS will automatically fill every other column for me, but I have to adjust it according to what I want, according to my taste. So for instance, I type sex there. You can see that it immediately fixed everything for me. But now, okay, so let's talk about type. We can see that it gave me numeric as an option. Now, the type here refers to the kind of data you want to enter. If it will be in figures, that is, if you're going to code it or you're going to put in figures directly, you will need to use numeric. Or if you're going to type in alphabets, then you will need to put in string. For example, let's check. You can see there's numeric, you can see there is string, there is also date. The most commonly used are those three. So if I want to type in a date, I want to use that slash sign, I'll have to put it in date. Put it in date. You can see the options it gave to me. See all the options here. Okay, so but most times we want to use numeric, so I'm going to leave it in numeric. You use string only when you have to type in alphabets, mostly used for open-ended questions. So I'll leave it in numeric. Now your width tells of the number of characters your box will permit. It's the amount of alphabetical letters I can type in that box in my data view. So if for instance I'm working on entering data into SPSS, and for instance now you can see there are 11 characters there. I want to type something like a very long word like let's say unimaginable. Okay, that should be less than 11, but let's assume we have 9 here. 9, it permits for only 9 characters, and I'm typing a word something like unimaginable. I think that should be more than 9 characters. When I'm typing it, I will likely experience the difficulty of not being able to complete it because my width permits for only 9 characters. So that's what your width means. So let's talk about decimal. Now your decimal refers to the number of decimal places your data will permit. So if I want 2 decimal places, for example, I'm imputing weight, I'm imputing BMI, I just have to increase it with this arrow and make it 2 decimal places. I want 3 decimal places, I have to increase it to 3 decimal places. So, but if I don't want any decimal places, which will be the case most of the times, I just remove it, reduce it to 0. So I don't have any decimal place. Now, your label gives you the chance to explain that question. For example, now we know this is sex, but actually this is sex of respondents. So, but I can't type sex of respondents under my name column because my name column does not permit space in between the words. So for the label, I can type here sex of respondents. Okay, so it gives me the chance to explain that question, and we'll move over to the data view. I will show you the advantage of that. Now let's talk about values. Now your value is where you do your coding for that question. For example, we know that for sex we have either the male gender or the female gender. So this is where I'm going to do my coding. For instance, I'm going to code now. I'm going to code my value is my figure, then the label will be the word. So I'm going to put 1 there, 1 standing for male, add, 2 standing for female, add. So you can see I've successfully coded my sex. So I'll click OK. So this will be my value. Now this coding I'm doing here will reflect in my data view. We will see more of it when we get to the other side. Okay, so missing. Now missing is used for, okay, for instance, for questions where answering is not applicable. There are certain questions like that the respondent may not qualify to answer, or he may not qualify to answer, or is not supposed to answer. So to prevent that from affecting our analysis, is preferable we replace it with a missing figure. Most times you want to use, when there's need for discrete figure, it's not all the time you have a situation where you need a missing figure. But in a situation where you need a missing figure, most times you want to use 999 because it is more like the highest permissible figures. And the reason why you may want to use 999 is that in case you have any figure less than 999, it won't be affected. So it's more like it gives enough gap, enough to make it a representative of missing figures. So most times, so I'm going to type 999 inside this box. In a case where I need missing figures, I'll type 999 and I click OK. So 999 will represent my missing value. So when I'm filling my data, whenever I get to that section of my SPSS, that section of my data view, I represent that place with 999, meaning this respondent is not supposed to answer this question, and that will prevent it from affecting my analysis. When I analyze finally, you see that SPSS recognize that space as a missing figure, and it will still total my result up to 100% without including that figure. Now column. My column tells about the width, that is the extent of my data view. So if I want the columns, this very column for sex to be very wide, I just have to increase my width. And I'm going to show you something. I'm increasing it now, I made it 26. Let's come back here. You can see how wide my sex width is. It's quite very wide, wider than every other one. So if I want it to the size of my column to increase, I will increase the width, the column value over there. Another way of doing this too is to just drag. I can also drag as well. So, but then there should be data inside already. So this makes it my standard size of column. Now this your align right or left. Most times for numeric, your data is aligned right, and if you're using string, your data is aligned left. It doesn't really matter. So let's talk about your measure. Now this is very important. Now your measure is the measurement you are using for your variable. Okay, so you can see we have 3 options here. We have scale, we have ordinal, and nominal. Now scale is used for measuring quantitative data and mostly used for continuous data. So for example, if I'm going to put things like age, serial number, I want to use scale because it is used to represent continuous data. And you know we have 2 types of continuous data. We have either ratios or intervals. And For examples of which we have age, we have weight of respondents, we have income of respondents. So when I want to enter any of those data into my SPSS, I have to use scale. And also example of intervals, I have temperature, date, percentage. Whenever I want to enter any of those data into my SPSS, I have to use scale. So those are instances where you use scale. Then ordinal. First of all, let me start by saying that ordinal and nominal, as we see there, they are both classes of qualitative variables. Let's start with ordinal. Now, ordinal is used for measuring. First of all, let's start by establishing that qualitative variables are variables that you can't measure. You can't measure them, but however, you can count them. So they are variables you can't measure, but you can count. Unlike for scale, most times you can measure. Talk about weight, you can measure. BMI, you can measure, and all of that. But for ordinal, this ordinal and nominal, you can't measure, you can only count. So that gives you an idea already of what kind of variables you use ordinal and nominal for. Now, ordinal, as you can see the sign there, it shows you this, it's showing you a histogram with a step ladder sign. Now, it simply means it is used to represent data that with ranking. Data with ranking. So your ordinal allows you to rank people or objects according to the quality or characteristics they possess. Example, we have level of education. For level of education, we have primary, we have secondary, we have tertiary. Now, you can see that there's a ranking in that order. Tertiary being higher than secondary being higher than primary school. So for level of education, you use your ordinal. On that example, on that place where you use your ordinal is for Likert scale kind of questions. That means your questions where you use strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree. We can see that there is an order. It tells you there is a difference, but the difference cannot be ascertained. And more like it tells you A is better than B, B is better than C, C is better than D. So you use ordinal for such variables. Now let's talk about your nominal. Your nominal is used for categorical variables without order. Simply put, your ordinal is used for categorical variables with ranking or with order, while your nominal is used for categorical variables, categorical qualitative variables without ranking or order. For an example of that, we have age. We have yes, no. Yes, no reply. They are categories, but there's no ranking. We have gender, male, female, race, color, city, ethnic group, marital status. All of them are nominal variables. So I hope we got that clearly. Thank you so much.